Mayor Karen Bass, welcome to the Don Lemon Show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Or as we say, welcome to the Lemonation. How are you doing?
You know what? I'm doing fine. Up for the fight. Very, very saddened by what is happening to so many families in our city unnecessarily. Families being torn apart for political posturing and performance. It's been a challenging time right now.
Yeah, political posturing and performance. I'm glad that you mentioned that because it's been really immensely troubling weeks, a couple of weeks for Los Angeles, like just maybe more than a couple of weeks. My audience is very concerned with what they see as effectively a federal occupation of your city, Mayor. The latest escalation came earlier this week when armed troops marched through MacArthur Park, a park where kids play, for seemingly no reason. Now, I want to watch a clip. This is from some of what you said just a few days ago, and then we can expand on it. Here it is.
Frankly, it is outrageous and un-American that we have federal armed vehicles in our parks when nothing is going on in the parks. It's outrageous and un-American that the federal government seized our state's National Guard. It's outrageous and un-American that we have U.S. Marines who are trained to kill foreign soldiers overseas deployed in our American city. So here's the truth. There's no plan other than fear, chaos, and politics.
So my question is, what is going on here? Because I don't see the same sort of treatment of cities with mayors who happen to be Republicans and supporters of this president. So you tell me, what is going on here?
Well, I describe it as Los Angeles as a petri dish. I think they're experimenting with us, experimenting with the notion of the federal government seizing power from a governor and seizing power from a mayor and literally taking over our city with military force. And this is just such a sad picture, Don, because they're marching through a kid's summer camp. And the kids had to be brought inside because they didn't want the kids to see, because the kids understand ICE. I mean, I was downstairs talking with the kids, and I had an 8-year-old come up to me. He didn't know what was happening, but just start randomly talking about how he was afraid of ICE, and he was mad about it, and that he was afraid that they were going to come take his parents away. So what was the purpose of this other than to have a raw display of power to say, we can take over your city when we want to? There were no arrests. They didn't even attempt to detain people. They pulled guns on healthcare workers that were in the park because there are a number of people suffering from addiction on the whole other side of the park. They didn't go over there. They went to the side of the park where the children were.
Yeah. Can you hold that thought, please, because you're talking about people suffering from addiction, because I know homelessness is a big issue for you and crime, et cetera. But let's just stick to this. Have you reached out to the president? Has he reached out to you? Have you two communicated at all?
No, we have not. I have a formal request to speak with him, but I haven't had a call with him.
And he has not returned your call,
no.
Nor the request. Have you heard anything? Have they even responded to it?
No, they have not. The response I have heard has been through the press. I have been in contact, though, with the head of Customs and Border Patrol, who essentially was leading that effort in the park. I've been in communication with him, basically, talking about what is the mission here? That's what I was asking him, because when I arrived in the park, I talked to the soldiers. I said, who is in charge here? I want to talk to who's in charge. And they put me on with Greg Bovino, who is in charge of Customs and Border Control. And I asked him, what is your mission here? What is your purpose? Had a difficult time hearing him, but what I think he said is it was to address crime. Well, the crime that has taken place in that park, and that park has been problematic, what is the Los Angeles Police Department for? We have a police department. Crime is down 40% in that park. Now, is it still a problem? Yes, but it's a problem that we can manage. Just like the protests. Don, they painted a picture like it was 1992 in LA where there were riots all over the city. I called it in 92 a rainbow riot because it took place everywhere and every color was involved. This was protests that at the end of the protest devolved with a couple hundred people committing chaos like happens after a Laker championship. And they vandalized properties. And then at the worst, several stores were looted. One time I called a curfew, everything calmed down. There hasn't been any violent protests or anything since they arrived. So what is their purpose except for to create a sense of terror and fear?
Yeah. Let me ask you that question in a different way, because you said you reached out to them. And by the way, if there's any police department that can deal with riots and that kind of thing, it's the Los Angeles Police Department. If there's any police department that can deal with terrorism, it's the New York City Police Department. But listen, do you see ICE, the National Guard, now the Marines, presence in Los Angeles as an occupation?
Yeah, absolutely it is. It's an occupation that I'm certainly hoping is going to end soon, because if you remember, Don, just a few short weeks ago, the goal and the mission was drug dealers, hardened gang members, and violent criminals. Now, these men are pulling up in unmarked cars, no license plates, tinted windows, just regular cars, jumping out of the cars with rifles and snatching people literally off the street. There have been occasions when the police have been called because citizens just watching thought they were watching a kidnapping. And the guys, by the way, are in plain clothes. They have a vest on. Sometimes the vest doesn't have any markings. Sometimes it says police, and that's it, looking like they got the vest online. How do you know who these are? Because, and by the way, completely masked. And you know that there have been criminals that have kidnapped people in other states. That hasn't happened here, but they did arrest somebody who had everything in his car ready to go out and impersonate an ICE agent.
I just wonder, I mean, if the folks in your city, obviously, or how they're feeling about this, because to see armed troops, in neighborhoods, military vehicles rolling about, I mean, it feels like a military state. I would not want this in my neighborhoods. And look, by the way, talk about that, and then we're going to talk about homelessness and crime a little bit more. But what are your constituents? What are the citizens of Los Angeles at large saying about this? And how are they feeling about this?
Well, first of all, the city is united. I mean, you could imagine that in some cities, this could be a very divisive issue with two camps, one camp supporting this and the other camp opposing this. If there's anybody that supports this in LA, I haven't seen nor heard of them. Because everybody understands how egregious this is. Nobody's sitting here defending hardened criminals, but nobody's seen any evidence of hardened criminals either. I mean, Don, that if they had arrested or detained a bunch of drug traffickers, they'd be parading them out. And Secretary Noem came here and she did a slideshow. It was 4 men that they kept showing over and over again. And they have detained hundreds at this point. Many of the people, we don't know where they are. They've had no contact with their families. They've not been afforded legal counsel. We do know that they're staying in horribly, horribly overcrowded conditions, not receiving proper medical care. This has just been very, very egregious. You have families that don't know if their family members are in LA, or in California, or even in the United States. They do not know.
Listen, since you mentioned Kristi Noem, you had Kristi Noem, you had a Senator Padilla being arrested there in California. And then you had the city comptroller here, or being detained or arrested, however you want to, they want to qualify it. You had it here in New York City. And the thing is, it's like, I don't understand why they're doing this. Why Kristi Noem and the folks who are there, because I understand that Alex Padilla had an FBI agent escorted him in. She should have known who he was. And so the governor having to go and, get help here, and then the mayor having to go to get help there. Talk to me about that, if you will.
Yeah, well, and the thing about it is that what happens in ordinary circumstances is, if we have a problem like a wildfire, a flood, or whatever, and we need the National Guard, we call the governor, and the governor in his power will deploy the National Guard. Since that power was taken away from him and the Guard was deployed here against our will, They had nothing to do. The only thing they were doing was they were guarding two buildings. And if you think about it, the National Guard are different. These are regular community members who are pulled away from their families, their work, their education, and their young people. It disrupts all of that for what? To be used as a prop in a reality show. That's what's so egregious about it. It's a misuse of the young men and women in our country. And it's a completely inappropriate use to have the military fights in foreign lands against the enemy, and they are trained to kill. It is completely inappropriate and unnecessary for the Marines to be in Los Angeles.
It's also bullying. I think it's also bullying you. I think and trying to belittle your position and authority as mayor. And so let's talk about homelessness and crime. And this is something that you don't shy away from. So for the, Donald Trumps and the MAGAs of the world, they say, well, he wouldn't need to do this if they would take care of the homelessness problem, if they would take care of the crime, if there weren't the drugs on the street. Los Angeles is under siege from all of these bad things. And Karen Bass is not doing her job. What do you say to that?
Well, I say stop cutting funding for homelessness, for health care, for substance abuse, and all the things that you're complaining about. No, seriously, we have a very serious problem with over 40,000 people who are homeless in Los Angeles City. Don, this is why I ran, was to address this problem. And I will tell you, in 2.5 years, this is the first time in I don't even know how many years that homelessness has declined. My focus has been primarily on street homelessness, the tents, the encampments that people build, which are really small communities, and getting people off the streets. We totally destroyed the myth that people don't want to leave the streets. That's not true. Not everybody is on the streets suffering from substance abuse and mental illness. There needs to be a comprehensive approach. So we've had an increase in our shelter population, which is what you want to see, and a decrease in street homelessness. We're doing everything we can to build as fast as possible, but it takes too long to build, even when you fast track everything. That's why we focus on putting people who are on the street in motels and in shelters that offer privacy to get them off the street so that they don't die. 4 to 5 people every day don't wake up in the morning off of our streets. They die on the streets.
You talked about the inhumane nature of what is happening with ICE and, people being threatened and afraid. I just want to show you a scene. I'm not exactly sure. I don't think it's Los Angeles, but these are the things that are problematic and also heart-wrenching to me. I just want you to watch this video because it's going on everywhere. And I want your reaction to it. Here it is.
No.
Sir,
todos.
let's go.
Todos.
Sir,
Todos nos
sir,
vamos.
we're not doing this.
Todos nos
Family,
vamos.
we're not doing this.
Todos
Family,
nos
family.
vamos.
Back up here, listen.
Todos nos vamos. No sean así, todos.
Family.
Todos. Todos.
Family,
No
family.
somos delincuentes, no somos nada. Todos nos vamos.
Have a little
No hay
discretion.
ningún problema.
I think this would be a really discretionary moment
This seems like
where
a
you can
moment for
let them
discretion,
go.
right?
If there's
No entiendo
small
por qué lo están
children,
haciendo, pero todos somos familia y nos vamos todos.
there's 3
No hay
small
problema.
children.
Si lo van a deportar, todos.
Entonces ahora no va para con eso, ¿ok?
Muestre.
Sí, tengo que mostrarlo porque yo no soy. Ok, está bien, yo no soy. Ok, está bien. Ok, ¿sí o no? Sí tengo, pero yo no soy ese que está ahí. Yo no soy. No.
So, Mayor, we'll let the video continue to play, but take the sound down because you'll see the dad starts to cry. They get in the elevator. The little girl is crying. The wife is crying. And in this particular case, they did not at this moment end up taking him away. I don't know, what happened after that. But these are people who are showing up in court, many of them trying to do the right thing. And then they get ambushed after they are leaving. And it's no due process. And it's just inhumane. Is the cruelty the point here?
Absolutely. But now remember the first term. Remember when they took the children away. What they did in the first term, and I went to the border. Don, that was when I was in Congress. I saw this where they would tell the parents, look, we're taking you to court. We'll take care of your kids. You'll get your kids when you're done with the court. And they don't get their kids back. And Don, to this day, there's about 1,000 children that are floating around our country that they lost track of because in the beginning, when they were deliberately taking the kids away, they didn't keep track of them very well. They didn't have a system in place. And so they lost the kids. So, yes, and they were very clear then that cruelty was the point. They were trying to make it so awful that people would say, well, you know what, I'm not even going to try to go. What they're trying to do now is make it so awful that people self-deport and just say, look, let me just get out of here. But they're pulling people and detaining people who've been in the country 10 years, 20 years, people who are showing up for their annual appointment. They have papers and they're required once a year to go to the immigration office and check in. They do that and then they're being detained, sometimes with their entire families. That's what that situation could have been. It's cruelty beyond cruelty.
Yeah. And supposedly we're going to get rid of the violent criminals. That's it. We're not going to, and it shows that they're not.
Even trying.
Yeah. Let's talk about resources, right? Because, we had the big, we'll talk about the big BS bill a little bit later, but yeah, I'm just wondering if you happen, because there's some news that just happened. There's this new reporting, it's in the Washington Post this morning, that they're detailing how for months that the governor of your state, Gavin Newsom, has pressed Congress to free up some $40 billion in federal relief for the swaths of Los Angeles destroyed by the wildfires earlier this year. President Trump and the GOP have so far withheld those funds, arguing that Newsom and you mishandled the fires and should be forced to undo certain liberal policies. That's their words, quote, liberal policies in exchange for aid. But now these deadly floods have struck Ruby Red, Texas, Mayor, and Republican response is so much different, with Trump and others promising unfettered federal support in the months and years to come. What do you make of that?
Well, the irony, Don, if you had talked to me on June 5th, I would have been singing the praise of the administration, because we are so far along in our recovery and rebuilding process, because in the beginning, they gave us so much support in the form of historic numbers of Army Corps of Engineers that have now almost cleared in the Palisades alone, which is the only area I represent. Close to 5,000 lots were burned. That's 5,000 homes primarily, but also some businesses. Unprecedented numbers of Army Corps of Engineers. And they also committed to continue President Biden's what he did was he said FEMA would reimburse 100%. FEMA normally reimburses 75%. He said it was 100%. And the Trump administration continued that. So this would be a marked departure. And we will see. Yes, we were supposed to be going to DC this week, as a matter of fact, to lobby the White House around the $40 billion. Obviously, that trip was canceled. But we still have to work with the administration, and they seemed very committed to making sure that the Palisades was rebuilt. Now, who knows? All of that is up in the air. But we also have the World Cup coming in a year. We have the Olympics coming in 3 years. The president is still expressing vocal support for that. $1 billion, made it through in terms of resources for security. So there is, but it's always that schizophrenic situation, right? And that you never know. I mean, the thing that is consistent about this administration, just like the last Trump administration, is inconsistency and uncertainty. That you can always count on. And so from one day to the next, you don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah. Can I just talk to you about something that's really been bothering me? And that is the double standard that I have been seeing happening in Texas, especially around Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz was away when this happened, did not come back. You were on official business during the fires. And the way that MAGA is now supporting him, the same people who demonized you and the same media who demonized you are all of a sudden in support of Ted Cruz, who was not on official business, did not come back immediately. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, I do think that there is a double standard in a lot of ways as to what is happening. And I think that the problem is that when Fox gets its hooks on you and Elon Musk and then the president, then that echo chamber just explodes. And that's certainly what happened to me. The irony is that a few days before I left, when the White House did a press release announcing that I had been invited to be a part of a presidential delegation, it was widely covered in the news and celebrated. And that was forgotten in 72 hours. And then it was reduced to, what is she over there in that place for anyway? What's going on over there? She must be over there partying or vacationing.
Yeah. Crazy. This politicization, this weaponization of federal relief feels so un-American to me. Frankly, it seems quite sociopathic. Is there a way that you can fight back? Because this president seems to just be, running roughshod over the legislative branch, which you obviously have been a part of, and the, judicial branch as well, defying federal judges. Is there a way to battle this in the courts in a significant way that will make a difference?
Yeah, well, I think that there is, and I think that we have to keep trying. So we just filed a lawsuit, or joined the lawsuit rather, around just the inappropriate detentions, the masking, all of that, how that is going down, and asking for an injunction. And so we'll see. But the courts have been all over the place. I mean, this was all quite diabolical. I mean, I remember, just as you do, in the first administration, that they, methodically appointed 40-year-old judges, some of whom had very dubious backgrounds in terms of their legal experience and even their knowledge of the legal system. But it really does seem, though, that our three co-equal branches of government have been abandoned for one branch, because you have a court that is compromised. You have the legislative leaders, the speaker and the head of the Senate, who basically went to Pennsylvania Avenue and handed their gavels over to the president. So we really only have one branch of the government that is empowered, and that is the administration, the White House.
By the way, thank you for being so candid and open about all of this, especially speaking about the double standard and all of that. Usually, folks don't like to be so candid, and you always are, and I appreciate that. Let's talk about something that I know that is important to you as well, and that is the big ugly bill, as you called it. I call it I can say that. I call it the big bullshit bill. You served in Congress for what is about a decade, correct?
Yes.
What do you make of this legislation?
Well, this is the march to the right that we have seen over time, and this is just making a really big departure, with even the Republicans having a hard time swallowing the pill of the Medicaid cuts. The thing that was always so surprising to me in Congress was that the programs that are cut, the safety net programs that are cut, benefit the Republicans in some cases even more so than the Democrats, because they represent very poor communities as well. But then, having said that, I was in Congress during Hurricane Sandy, and I watched Congress members vote against aid to their own jurisdictions. They didn't want to support aid after Hurricane Sandy unless it contained cuts. And so they went against aid for their own areas. So you just wonder why their voters allow that. Why do they vote for people who turn around and hurt them?
Yeah. Mayor, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on. Again, I appreciate your candor, and we wish you the best of luck. Will you please come back on and discuss, because the eyes of America and the world are really on California right now and on you guys.
I would love to come back on, and anything I can do to support your show, you just count me in.
Thank you. Thank you for supporting independent media. Mayor Karen Bass of Los Angeles. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members-only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support, and we will see you next time.